introduce myself. My name is O, H to the OV. I used to move snowflakes by the OC. I guess even back then you could call me CEO of the ROC. Fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I be the music biz #1 supplier. Flying in a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. That's right, oh, not DOC, but similar to the letters. No one can do it better. You can blame Shawn, but I ain't invent the game. I just roll the dice trying to get some change. I done came through the block, but I ain't invent the game. Still alive, it's in my veins. Only God can check me. Only God can check me, so I'm gone.
Play it day one with Game Pass.
The Indianapolis 500 is our mecca. It's our Super Bowl.
It's the largest single-day sporting event in the world, so it's a crowd like no other. And it's a very tough race to win.
I still have butterflies, I still get nervous before the start.
This place chooses the winner every time, and you gotta earn it.
It's gonna be a great day. Let's be part of history.
The Indy 500 is the one event in the world that can take your name to an entirely new level.
It's dangerous, but that's the thrill of it as well.
The INDYCAR is just so competitive. You make one little mistake, there are 26 other cars out there, and they will beat you.
For 17 races, we got to go out and do our job.
I'd do like anything to win the 500.
I think this season is going to be tough. Real tough.
I get to drive race cars for a living, which I think it's every man's dream, bro.
Win the championship, win the 500. Those are the main goals always. We've actually had a very poor performance at the Indy 500. It's unacceptable.
We are red flag.
We're risking our lives, but it's what we want to do. It's what we love.
Let's go. Let's go.
I just want to beat every out there. I don't care. There's your trailer. Nah.
Driver, start your
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network and welcome to Drafting the Circuits, presented by Sinister One Productions. My name is Frank Santorowski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk over everything racing. Joining me on the panel, Richard Uden, Levi, Luis Torres. Guys, how we doing?
I'm doing quite well. Hopefully it's the last day I have this haircut that I need to cut anyways.
Okay, yeah, that's off topic, but good to see you, Louise. First off, I want to thank our guests from last week, Shawn and Adam Semonick from the what is it, FSB Racing League. They were very interesting guests. I want to thank you guys for holding down the fort. So I had to miss the show. I was up in meetings out of town. It's probably the first episode of Drafting the Circus I've not been on since sometime in 2013. But Richard, Lee, Louise, and Seth, who's not with us today, you guys did a great job with the show. I was driving home, had it on my Bluetooth, listening through the car. So really appreciate you guys filling in. And again, top of the show, Forza Motorsport, 100 Days to Indy on the CW, and Louise Torres Multimedia. I'd like to thank all those guys for sponsoring us. So, but let's get into the nuts and bolts of the Talladega weekend, because there were a lot of nuts and bolts scattered over the track, as usual, as we expect in Talladega. So, starting with the Cup race, right? So we had, at the end of the day, it was a certain Mr. Kyle Busch taking the win there. Another win on the season for him and his new digs with Richard Childress. A lot of guys really there in contention at the end. Bubba Wallace, he called out for blocking, which I don't say if you can blame him or not, but it certainly didn't work out well for him. Started the big one, but the white flag had already flown, so that put the win in Kyle's lap. So, which one of you guys wants to jump in and kind of break down the rest of the action from Talladega?
Oh, fortunately for the Cup race, it was honestly arguably the tamest one for like the first 180 or so laps, as your typical Talladega Cup race has become these days, where you still had your occasional multi-car incidents, but the drivers are able to spread out and not bunching into each other like the Xfinity race the day before, or the ARCA race at the beginning, where there's like all the ones that typically have problems, or those strong cars are out of it. But if for a period of time, it looked like Bubba Wallace and Ty Gibbs were trying to make something work, but for much of it, they could not get a strong run, either whether or not they were patient about it, or they were just waiting for the right time to make the move. And once they did, Bubba was the one who capitalized it. It's just unfortunately he made a block on the last lap that just took out several cars. And lo and behold, Kyle Busch, for the second time in the last year, you can quote unquote say backed into victory lane, but when it comes to super speedway, more often than not, some people will back their way into victory lane. So is it really does it really fall on that line compared to how Busch won the Bristol Dirt Race a year ago?
It depends on who wins, right?
Yeah.
Because if Bubba Wallace wins, he backed his way into it, or the rain helped him out, or whatever, or the officials helped him out. If Kyle Busch wins in a Childress car, he's the greatest driver in the world. It's just fans are fickle like that. But in my book, a race win is a race win, and you have to be in it to win it. You have to be there in the right place at the right time. And whether you're running second or third on the last lap, and guys mess up ahead of you, that's still your win. That's still your trophy going home with you.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals where one driver can get through, but the others may have trouble. Like AJ Allmendinger, for example, he was up there. He couldn't get through it. Martin Truex Jr. couldn't go through it, but Chase Briscoe, on the other hand, was able to get through, finished fourth after being 2 laps down for losing control in pit road. And he wasn't the only driver to have problems in the first set of pit stops where he lost control and had an incident. Tyler Reddick beforehand wrecked, no yellow. Briscoe flat spotted the tires, lost 2 laps. That brought out the yellow because he was doing donuts at pit lane. It's still considered a hot track, so that one makes sense. But for Reddick, he also recovered fairly nicely. But Briscoe, on the other hand, got his laps back and was able to at least get through with a third straight top 5 result. And Roush also had a superb day. The difference is, rather than contend to the front like Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher tend to do these days, especially Keselowski, who's won 6 times at Talladega, he took a page out of the old Bobby Labonte, Dale Jarrett book where let's ride in the back, and then when it's crunch time, it's crunch time. They were there, but not up front like I thought they were going to be. But at the end of the day, they escaped and had a solid day. That's much you can ask for these days at Talladega.
Yeah, it was a Ford parade behind the Chevrolet winner, and Toyota left on the outside looking in. And if you look at all these winners, all the B's in here, right? You got. I'm sorry.
Whoa!
Whoop! Shots fired. Duck. Whoa!
Oh, but
hang on. I just want to, for long periods of that race, the 4 leading Toyotas were line of stern, nose to tail, running a perfect super speedway race in that high lane.
Right, but like I said, they got left out to dry at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
I didn't say that Toyotas look bad. The Toyotas look really good.
I mean, honestly, if the ones that looked bad were the Chevys, considering the first overtime, you had Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson creating a massive episode where Kyle Larson got collected, and Ryan Preece, while shifting down for whatever reason, T-boned Larson on the right side, it destroyed the crush panel, where Larson's car was taken to the R&D center. Fortunately for Larson and Preece, they were okay, but sometimes it's just, I don't know if it's lack of awareness, heat of the moment, you can't really think, or it's just bad instinct. But when you look at Preece's onboard, where you saw the driver's face, it was a brutal impact. Some people are already comparing it to the one that Johnny Benson had in the ASA, where the whole goggles got knocked off completely by sheer impact of the wall. But he shifted.
If you look at Preece's in-car was crazy when he made that impact, and his visor just, I mean, it just slammed up like that. That's tough. And I gotta say, I mean, safety on these cars nowadays is pretty good, because I think if that was a lick 10 years ago, those guys would be it would be seriously hurting right now. So I mean, kudos to NASCAR for making a safe car, but that was a wicked hit they got.
Yeah, and I want to say that if you look at the damage on Larson's car, look at some of the photos of how the roll cage was compromised.
Yeah,
it's quite concerning. And if that was on the driver's side, it might be a different story we're talking about today. But if you look at that, that is a bit concerning, because usually those things hold up rather well. But so maybe some guys to look at. So yeah,
and that roll cage was not. I mean, I would not consider that minor damage. Like that roll cage.
No, it's a mess.
I mean, that was pushed in like a foot. That was a big lick, and yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, it's fortunately there wasn't another Franchitti Gunselman or a Friday Hassler down there.
Yeah, so we're looking at top 5. You got you got Busch, Blaney, Buescher, Briscoe, Brad, all these B's. Too bad Bubba couldn't have stayed up there. But I gotta hand it to him. Everybody.
Yeah.
This guy, he gets a lot of undue criticism. And some of it for just folks that are just racist or whatever, they just don't like him. But some of it he brings on himself with some of his behaviors and whatnot. But the guy is a heck of a plate racer. He really is. And he just, trying to block's not always the smartest thing to do. I think lesson learned right there. But he sure looks strong all day, as did the rest of the Toyotas, Richard.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I listened to the pre-race show. They talk about it, and they talk about it every year. When you get down to under 50 laps, you're not driving out the front of your car anymore. You're driving in that rearview mirror, because trouble's coming from behind. And I mean, I commend Bubba for what he did. He was fighting to stay in front, and he was fighting for that win. And I think he just dipped, what do they say? He dipped into the pool one too many times, and it caused a wreck. But I mean, it's weird, because they were really, like, the whole pre-race, they were talking about that last 50 laps, you race in your rearview mirror, and that's what Bubba was doing. And now they're criticizing him for, too much of it. So it's not. Yeah. I wish they could find a happy medium. Like, are we gonna race with the rearview mirror and block and protect our win, or what are we gonna do? It's I think it's tough.
Yeah. So let's look at the Xfinity race a little bit, because there was, I think, the biggest highlight reel of the weekend came out of the Xfinity race, where Blaine Perkins took a tumble, and it's one of those things we used to see at Talladega and some of the other super speedways back in the days before they put the roof flaps on and the hood flaps that would kind of keep the car to the ground. But yeah, he got a bunch of air and tumbled that thing around. He's been released from the hospital, but that was quite a hit he took.
Yeah, never a good feeling, especially for a guy like Blaine Perkins. 3 years ago, he was a stellar West driver, won an Evergreen for Bob Brucati. He got let go of Bobby Darter just early in the season. He started off with the 07, then he got dropped, and then he went back to R Motorsports where he started his Xfinity career. And to see that tumble was very unfortunate, and it's a chaotic wreck. Also, Dexter Stacy is okay as well, former one-time Cup starter back in Pocono over a decade plus ago. He also had a hard lick, and that kind of started the whole accordion effect, because sometimes one wreck happens, depending on which series, there's an accordion effect that follows, and fortunately both were okay, and hopefully Perkins gets back up there soon. It's been quite the year for those former West alumni. Well, of course, referring to Dean Thompson at Texas, where he got shaken up quite as well after a hard truck crash.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it was Jeb Burton taking the win there. So another one of that Burton family there. As his brother Harrison runs in the Cup Series and is not exactly setting the world on fire, but he's living, he's learning. I'm really surprised that that Wood Brothers team isn't performing better, but we'll just have to give him some time. But good job to Jeb Burton there.
First win for Jordan Anderson. Especially, it's the first time that Jordan Anderson himself came back after that fiery truck wreck at Talladega that sidelined him for a period of time. And it's just Jeb's first top 10 sit in a long time. He hadn't had a top 10 in over like a dozen races or so. So huge turnaround that puts him into the playoffs, especially for a guy like Jeb. A win should certainly put him in quite seamlessly now. But the biggest frustration of them all is between Daniel Hemrick and JRM, but specifically JRM's like, good grief. I don't know what I saw at Talladega. I saw the amount of cars they have wrecked, and more often than not, all of them getting collected, incidental or not, it's got to be annoying for Junior at this point. Because this is a guy that's trying to get into the Cup Series, but he's got to pay so much more damage bills than probably Haas and McLaren and Michael Andretti has done over the past year at this point. It's racking up quite horribly.
Yep. Fixing those cars. So, Richard, what were your impressions of Talladega?
It was expensive.
There you go. All right. I think Louise just alluded to that. So,
yeah, it's not. I mean, it's one of the problems, isn't it? I mean, on a more serious note, I'm fascinated with super speedway races because when I first started watching them, I thought it's just a crapshoot. It's just like drawing random numbers and hand out a trophy. But it's not. I think he started the Cup race more than anything because he did have those long green flag runs. You have this real sort of almost organic, motion of the pack. How each individual lane comes in and gets some momentum and then drops back, and there really is an art form that's probably is a skill in itself for these drivers. And as we know, some drivers extremely talented at super speedway racing, others not quite so much. But you have this sort of 98% of the race is built up in this way that the drivers are handling themselves and controlling the pack and making these tactical moves, and then all hell breaks loose for the last 5 laps. And it's like, it's just really frustrating in a way. It's sort of, you have this almost like beautiful sort of like your sort of ballerina-esque motion, and then suddenly it just turns into a street brawl, and
it turns into a hockey game.
It's like it loses all of that elegance, if you like, which I know is difficult to sort of corroborate with a NASCAR race for sure. But I love watching the boring parts of the race, how the teams move in and out, how the drivers move in and out, and listening to the spotters and listening to all that. It's fantastic. And then at the end there, just pick a winner, guys. Come on,
Yeah, we shared that same thing. It felt like for the Cup race specifically, you actually saw drivers trying to do something. If it doesn't work, then they stay, be patient and try something different and just wait for it. And as I
Yep.
go back to the illusion, also there's quite scale where Rex, you think, oh man, there's going to be about 15, 20 cars in these, and especially at Talladega these days, only like 3 or 4 until we get to the bitter end, and it's everybody. And I would rather have just only a few in the wreck and see how the other ones avoided it perfectly than wad them up at the end, like when we started doing this stage racing thing in 2017, 2018, where it seemed like every last lap at the stage there's always tomfoolery involved.
Yeah, the stage racing wasn't too bad. There wasn't that many wrecks at the end of the stages, was there?
No,
which is a surprise because it has been recently. I think you see more of that towards the end of the season when these drivers are clamoring for stage points. But yeah, it was it was just the last few laps. It's like got messy.
Yeah, that weighted down a ton, but it was like very typical. But at the very least, I left after that cup race not annoyed or peeved like the Xfinity race, where it's like, of course they would wreck. Of course, everybody would just plow right in or one ridiculous decision that just leads to this nonsense. And it's hard to believe that 10 races into the Cup season, we have yet to have a red flag.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
I mean, Dover is not looking ideal weather-wise, but if it washes out completely Sunday, then it's just be Monday racing. But
are they running the wet weather package at Dover?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure about Dover.
I don't
because
think so.
Because it has banking. Because Dover is much more banked than like a Martinsville or a Phoenix.
Yeah. You looked that up. Well, we are heading to Dover, but one guy that won't be joining us in Dover is Alex Bowman. So let's talk about that a little bit. Alex Bowman, running in a sprint car race, managed to injure himself to the point where he's going to miss 3 or 4 races. And this is another Hendrick driver getting hurt outside of, his primary income job. Chase Elliott had just returned after his snowboarding accident. Now Bowman has been in an accident there. So once again, it's Josh Berry filling in for the next couple of weeks. So that guy might get a full season in if these guys keep it up. So Luis, what are you hearing on the prognosis for Bowman? What were the extent of the injuries? I just really didn't get a chance to kind of read it.
I haven't dove into it that much either. Yeah. I know he's out for 3 to 4 weeks, and a sprint car incident happened. Of course, naturally, all the talk is, will this be the end of those Hendrick drivers doing extracurricular activities? I mean,
yeah, no, you gotta think about that.
The Chase one is completely different because that was off racing related. Bowman was in racing, and it just because you saw at the beginning of the year, Joe Gibbs is just pretty much forbids Christopher Bell to do anything else outside of the Cup car, which is a shame. Hendrick has solved enough distance. I think it does help to have Jeff Gordon and probably Jeff Andrews also seeing day-to-day operations of the organization, but we'll just see how it affects Bowman, because the biggest thing is that Bowman, yes, in 2021, Dover being one of those tracks that he won 4 times, but I still felt like he wasn't the strongest Hendrick driver. I still put Byron ahead of Bowman. But this season, it seems like he was quietly putting on a career start. He was leading the championship points until the penalties came back to bite him left and right. He's having a superb season, and now it's kind of gone to waste over unfortunate circumstances. And naturally, you'll have that when you're in racing, especially in sprint cars, but we'll see how the direction goes now as far as whether or not the stance will stay the same or we'll have to toughen up a bit, because Bowman was just having a strong year. And to see that happen,
it's a shame to have to see him sit out a couple of weeks, but so that means he's gonna miss the Coke 600, right? He's gonna miss the All-Star race.
I think we'll say 3 to 4 weeks. He may be back for the 600 because obviously that's the 4th race, but as you say, he'll probably miss the All-Star race.
Yeah, he'll miss the All-Star race, which probably means Bowman is going to be an All-Star rookie.
Right. But again,
can Josh Berry take Bowman's spot in the All-Star race then?
Yes, and here's why, because, Harry Gant took over Bill Elliott's spot in the Winston, despite Harry never winning the All-Star race.
I don't know, but Harry's more of a star than Josh Berry. I mean, at least Harry Gant's got, got a pretty good reputation.
Just because it happened in the past, so I'd imagine If it's not Josh Berry, maybe put on the tinfoil hats and start saying Jimmy returns to the 48, which is not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you would almost think they just go with the next guy who would be eligible, right? You know, the next guy in points, but I guess it's got to be that car. I guess it's the car.
Yeah,
qualified
in the past, it's been the car. That's why Dave Mater III has an all-star race.
Yeah, well, certainly
and Mike Wallace.
Jimmy's not going to get in that car because Jimmy's, he's doing his thing with Legacy.
No, for sure. That's why I say put your tinfoil hats because
tinfoil hats. I got you.
That's why I said that a moment ago. It's like because if they don't allow Barry to run the 48 in the All-Star race, people are going to jump in and say, "Oh, it's time to put Johnson back in the 48," and blah blah blah. And similar to the whole thing with Carl Edwards visiting Trackhouse Racing, which is only a visit.
Yeah, so what you got to figure, NASCAR will certainly give Bowman the waiver because they've not been tough on handing out a waiver to anybody. It's just
unless you're Grant Enfinger.
Well, I mean, yeah, but even the guy that parked his car on the start-finish line Xfinity race, they gave him the waiver for getting suspended. So, but the thing is, though, it's like Bowman's having this really good season going on, right? But you got to wonder if there's going to be any lingering effects of the injuries, right? I mean, Chase raced at Martinsville and he raced here, but he was really exhausted after Martinsville and he was in a lot of pain. So you got to wonder these guys really pushing to come back.
I mean, look no further
as soon as they can.
Look no further with Earnhardt in '96 when he has the sternum. Same thing with Bowman. He has sternum problems. And look how it affected the rest of '96 and the majority of '97.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than these football players that they say, hey, rub some dirt on it and get back in the game, So, they could make the injuries worse if something else happens, So, but we'll just have to monitor Bowman's progress through his recovery and, see if he can kind of bounce back. Because like you said, he was looking like he'd be a strong contender all year long. So, but again, for Hendrick, this is two guys back to back. So, I mean, what's next? Larson going to get hurt next? Fall down the steps, hurt his elbow playing tennis.
Or it could be the first McLaren test sometime this year later on. Who knows?
Yeah, who's the guy that fell down the steps with a suitcase? Patrick Carpentier.
All I know, Montoya was tennis, Ellen Bestwick was hockey, and Jack Sprague was through a house fall. I think Bill Elliott also had one too.
Yeah.
So not tennis.
Well, Carpentier didn't fall down the steps either. Carpentier was on a dirt bike,
the same thing with Paul Tracy. That excuse, I get where you're going, Richard.
That's what I'm saying.
I was actually talking to a colleague about this. The official line from McLaren was that he was playing tennis. When he returned to the series, he was asked in an FIA interview, "So, Juan Pablo, it must be difficult to play tennis while riding a motorbike," which of course was forbidden in the McLaren contract at the time. So the belief is that he was actually fell off his motorbike rather than playing tennis.
Absolutely, yep. So, but anyway, that's an older story. But at least we know exactly what Bowman was up to. There's no, there's full transparency there.
There's footage of that wreck.
Yep, I was gonna say, yeah. So, it's not like he tried to say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't in a sprint car. I was playing tennis. Fell down the steps." So, all right. So we are on to Dover. We had Dover, Kansas, All-Star, and then the 600. That sounds about right. All right. Yep. So who do you guys like for Dover? Who do you like for the Monster Mile? Lee?
Come back to me. I want to think about this one.
Okay. Darn. So, all right. So, Louise, that goes to you.
Finally, I can say this. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I mean, he was a...
Oh,
come on now.
I agree.
Give him 25 laps a year ago. Green flag laps, he would have caught Chase Elliott, or even sooner. He probably could have won last year.
Yep.
Yeah. It just hurts my heart that you picked Ricky Stenhouse. So,
because I picked him, watched him finish around 25th. Like when what I picked last week, Logano. I think I picked Logano, and he got wiped out at the end.
What do y'all pick Bubba last week? Didn't you? Lee, didn't you pick Bubba last week?
No, I think it was
Seth
William Byron.
Bubba.
Yep, Seth picked Bubba. I picked William Byron.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Seth picked Bubba. You're right. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson just for fun. So, yeah, and Richard, you'll abstain, I'm sure. So we'll watch it over next week, and we'll report on that in a week. So let's move our attention over to the NTT IndyCar Series, who are preparing to race at the Barber Motorsports Park this weekend. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the new television series that premieres tomorrow night on CW. And that is a reality series called 100 Days to Indy. The first episode will be tomorrow night on the CW. CW is available on many different cable outlets on the basic tier. So it's not, it's not like it's going to be hard to find. Almost everybody has it. Just wherever you watch Family Feud, you'll find 100 Days to Indy. So after Steve Harvey, you can have some IndyCar. So, but they had a little premiere event for it in Indianapolis where they showed it. And the reviews are amazingly positive. Everybody is really thrilled with the way it's come out, or the way it's coming out, because some of this has yet to be filmed as they get closer and closer to race time. But everybody's pretty stoked with the project. And again, it's being produced by Vice, and Vice puts together some really good stuff. I mean, I've been watching. And they've got a lot of behind the scenes kind of thing. Watch one all about Star Wars. They're doing one now all about the whole Marvel universe. And they just, they put out a quality product. They really do. So I'm really interested to tune into the CW tomorrow evening and watch this. And I'm sure, even if it's terrible, I'll think it's wonderful just because it's the kind of exposure IndyCar needs.
Yeah, we could use it, because if it's not going to be video games, it might as well be something authentic.
Yeah, that video game thing is a whole nother mess. Yeah, that's that whole. They ought to just, I don't know.
Yeah, but
someone needs to, because that's NASCAR and IndyCar both losing video games because this company's bankrupt.
Yeah, so that's a different topic for another time.
Yeah, it's a topic for another day. Let's talk about the Indy 500 open test. So we got the first look at everyone's Indy 500 liveries, everyone Indy 500 cars. The test was supposed to be 2 days. It was shortened to one because the rains came down on day 2, unfortunately. So the whole purpose of the test was to test a couple of different aero configurations to see what they could do to kind of make the racing closer, but not pack racing close, So they had a couple of different configurations that guys could try. So it's hard to tell who was trying what, looking at the speeds, because you got guys near the top that you might not expect. You got guys near the bottom that you might not expect. But again, when it comes to testing, who knows what they were working on, right? Although Joseph Newgarden was fastest in the 227 mile per hour range, that's going to be pretty shy of what the pole speed is going to be. Was it 231 last year with Dixon?
I think it was 233. I think it might have surpassed Guerrero's mark.
Was it 233? It was, it was the fastest. It was the fastest 4-lap ever, wasn't it? No, the fastest.
The second fast. I think it still trails Lyondike, but it surpassed Guerrero.
It was the fastest pole speed ever, because Lyondike set that.
Oh yeah,
that monster 236 on. Back in the day, they used to have the first week qualifying, second week qualifying. And if you didn't qualify first week, you had to line up. So even though,
you would have surpassed Brayton, I believe.
That sounds about right. The fastest pole speed was set last year. So these test speeds are pretty far off of that. But then again, once you get into Fast Friday and the actual qualifying day, they give them about 10 more horsepower when they turn up the boost there at the end of the thing. But Connor Daly, second quick. Dixon, third quick. Kirkwood right up there. I was very excited to see fifth quick was our friend Stephen Wilson, who was on the show here. He's with he's with the Dry Reinbold Cusick Racing entry there. So they've put together a pretty good car for him. His teammate Hunter Ray was up there in the top half of the field as well. So, we wish him well. Obviously, anybody that's been on here is a friend of the show. We always wish them well. But like guys towards the bottom, like Sato in the Ganassi car, when you got Dixon running third quick and Sato way near the back. And Sato's a guy who knows his way around the Indy 500. He knows his way around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So you got to imagine that him and Dixon were testing opposite setups. Because I would imagine that once we get down to it, into the real month of May and the actual race practice and qualifying, that Sato's going to be right up there in the mix. Don't you agree, Richard?
For sure. No, I think the guy knows his way around that place better than most. And, it's one of these, we've seen with previous, some of the winners in previous years, it's experience counts there more than most most races. Yep. And, he's a wily competitor and he's aggressive. He's not got championship points to consider. So he's going to make those aggressive moves. And some of the guys that are in championship contention, if they see him in the mirrors, will probably think twice about making too much of an aggressive block on him.
Absolutely, yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Richard and Takuma know each other pretty well. Richard used to back in the day when Takuma was racing for a Honda Formula One. Richard was Richard. You were his personal steering wheel engineer, right? You programmed something like that. Yeah.
Those lines, yeah.
So Richard and I both share a healthy respect for Takuma Sato, who earns it. Two-time Indy 500 winner. Despite his reputation of being a little reckless at times, the guy has brought home the goods. More often than not. So, but so that's how that went. Callum Ilott also way near the bottom, so you wonder what they were testing there. Obviously, Peterson at the bottom, not unexpected at all. The Foyt team still continues to struggle. Catherine Legg in the Ray Hall car. She's, I think, 4 years out of an IndyCar. So she's
a
pretty
real
rusty.
long time.
It might be more than 4 years.
It's more than 4 because
it might be like 10.
I think that's what they were saying. 10 years. Of course, the only IndyCar experience he's dabbled on is just those 2-seaters. But other than that, he's been mostly just sports car racing since then.
Right, yeah. But she's got a couple of 500 starts now. The 3 true 500 rookies in the field, being friend of the show, Stingray Robb. Lee's favorite driver, Augusto Canapino, because Lee likes the Argentinian stock car racing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and Peterson being the other rookie. All 3 of them passed their rookie orientation program, so they're good to go for the month of May. So so there you go. First look at the new liveries. First look at the cars in Speedway trim at the 500. So it's shaping up to be a pretty wide open 500. Obviously it has been the last several years, but you got to look at this. Way too early to start picking winners for the 500, but it's interesting to start looking at the odds and whatnot, right? Because who would have thought Marcus Ericsson would have pulled it off last year, right? Who would have thought Sato would have pulled it off in 2017, right? But these guys have really shown that they know their way around this place. And to Ericsson, his race was near perfect last year, right? He was there to capitalize on others' mistakes, right where he wanted to be. And then when it came down to the end, he was able to hold off a charging Pato Award, and Pato Award, another guy who's going to be strong at the 500 when we come up to it. But this weekend, we've got to tackle the Barber Motorsports Park, which is one of my favorite tracks on the IndyCar calendar. Lee, you ever have a chance to look at the Barber Motorsports Park?
I have not.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm looking forward to it.
Rolling green hills. They've got all these interesting sculptures around the place. It's also the home of the Barber Museum that houses all kind of vintage motorcycles and race cars. Barber was designed
and giant insects as well, aren't there?
Yeah, all the sculptures.
Giant insects, mannequins.
Yeah. And you've got the giant scorpion that. So it's a pretty wild little place, man. But it was designed as a motorcycle track initially, but they several years ago they did some renovations in there and reached out to INDYCAR and they say, hey, and they ended up doing the preseason test at Barber, right? Just like they did this year at Thermal Park as a just kind of like an audition. And the drivers really liked it. A lot of fans came out to the test. So 2 years later, they added it to the schedule, and it's been on there ever since. And it's one of the very popular races. It's right smack dab in NASCAR country, right south of Birmingham. Right. But they pull in a heck of a crowd of folks who really know their IndyCar racing too. Because I went down to Barber a couple of years ago, and I was surprised that is how many people just really know their stuff and follow the series down there. So, but then again, you get in certain areas like the people love racing. You find out that, not everybody, fits into one. They say, oh, I'm a NASCAR guy, or I'm an IndyCar guy. There are a lot of folks out there like us who enjoy all the racing, and it was really pleasant to see all those folks at Barber. I wish I could go this weekend, but I'll be in Richmond, Kentucky instead. But let's let's do an early pick. Let's pick a winner for Barber. Louise.
I'd be curious to see how Arenas VK does, but I feel like I don't know what's got to click for them, because that was the turning point of VK season. That's the last time that I can recall memory-wise he was in the mix for a race win. I'm going to keep an eye on him, but I'm going to go with Felix in this one, actually.
That's a good pick, yeah, Felix. Actually, VK was on the media day. He said he feels really confident that their car is going to be strong at Barber. So, and I'd love to see the Carpenter team has just kind of shuffled to the back this year, like them and the Rahal team as well. So it would be good to see a good result out of VK. So, yeah. Richard, what are your thoughts?
I think he's been strong on the road course and the street races this year. I think Roman Grosjean could get it done this weekend.
I had a feeling you were going to go with Grosjean.
Yeah, he's been quick. He could have won both of the. He could have 2 wins under his belt by now if it wasn't a little bit.
No, he could have had probably. Well, yeah, he could have been 3 for 3 right now for.
Could have been 3 for 3 if it weren't for other people winning those races. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, if
I could have won the lottery if they'd picked my numbers.
Yeah. So, but Grosjean's a good pick. The Andretti team has really looked strong. On the
picked it up,
courses,
Yep.
Lee, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with the award this weekend.
Yeah, I was thinking about picking an award, but you beat me to it. So, I always like Newgarden for Barber. He's won there twice. It's the track closest to his home in Tennessee. He calls it his home track. But I want to say that he's going to get bested by his teammate, Scott McLaughlin, this week. And we'll see those Penske cars move back to the front because they've had a couple of struggles this year. On and off. I mean, Newgarden's obviously won already. But I like McLaughlin for this one. So
one thing is for certain is that Dixon will probably finish second again.
And you know what? Dixon won't mind that at all. That's how Dixon wins championships by when he doesn't win, he salvages a great points day on the days he doesn't win. So
you know why I said that, right? Because which track he is yet to win at?
Long Beach.
I was thinking Barber. I swear he has yet to win.
He's yet to win at Barber. Yeah. I don't believe Dixon's got a Long Beach under his belt though. I might be wrong. I
have to dive into that because you brought up a good point.
Yeah, but Dixon's won pretty much everywhere else. So, but there's one more bit of IndyCar news before we move on to start talking about NHRA and Formula One. That is the Grand Prix of Nashville. Has been renewed for a few more years, but under the caveat that, the Titans...
Wasn't he a Russian Formula One driver?
The Titans?
No, the caveat.
Yeah, he was a Russian Formula One driver, yeah. Yeah, but then he Now he runs Xfinity races, right? Road courses. So
moving on.
Sorry. So the Tennessee Titans are building a new stadium, kind of very close to where their current stadium is, which is where the current layout for the track is. So they'll run that layout this year, but 2024 they'll have a whole different layout. For the now, Louise, are you telling me 2015 for Dixon, Long Beach or Barber?
Long Beach.
Okay, I thought he might have one. Yeah. So, all All right, so Barber. But so anyway, so Tony Cobbin, the circuit designer, is working with the officials in NASCAR. They've been taking a lot of aerial photography to see where they can redo that course during the couple of years of construction on that new stadium. But but the good news is that the race goes on. It's that there were folks that would think, oh, they're going to have to cancel the race now, just like folks are trying to put Long Beach to bed too because of construction going on there. But I always think that where there's a will, there's a way. And, where there's a street, you can block it off. So, all right. So, who wants to go next? Lee, you want to talk about NHRA? Or Richard, you want to talk about Formula One? Either one of you have the floor because I'm tired of talking.
Go on, Lee. You can have this one for now.
Oh, thanks. It'll be quick.
Yes, we got four wide nationals coming up, right? Yep.
4 wide nationals in Charlotte. This weekend looks to be a lot of fun. Piggybacking off the 4 wides in Vegas, which I thought was a great weekend. Always exciting, the 4 wide, because it's just it's really fan induced fun. So I'm looking forward to it. Think it'll be a good time. Other news in NHRA. So out in Denver, the Mile High Nationals, since like 1956, I think, has been held at Bandimere Raceway. It's a family-run NHRA track out there. And so the family last week announced that after this year's race, they're going to be closing Bandimere. They are in talks with trying to find other real estate to host the event. But right now, there's nothing concrete, no contracts are signed yet. But so Bandimere is going to probably come offline for probably 2 years. They're talking until they can acquire some new real estate to put a park in, and then they'll come back online, hopefully. But I mean, Bandimere is one of those. I mean, it's been around forever. Sad to see him go. But
that's the second NHRA track that's gone after this year. After Phoenix also is
Phoenix
moving locations or
Yep. And it's just a real estate thing, Unfortunately, there's a lot of people from the urban areas are moving out to the countries and suburban areas, and so the price of land is skyrocketing, and the Bandimere family, I think, is jumped on that train to
sell
the property.
Sorry, Lee. Did I not read about a new track development that's going to include a drag strip somewhere? I'm sure I read
in New Jersey, right?
Yep. So they
okay.
Yeah, because the New Jersey track closed a couple years ago, and that was
Inglewood, right?
And that was Englishtown, and it wasn't. I think they closed Englishtown not because of real estate prices, but because Englishtown was had some serious accidents in their overrun area. The track is really short. Like the overrun typically is as long as the competitive area. So you're talking 1,000 feet or a quarter mile. Englishtown, the overrun area was very, very small. And to my knowledge, I think at least 2 drivers had some fatal accidents there. And so NHRA and I think, Englishtown, they just said, it's just not safe to race here anymore. So they ended up getting rid of it. But it was always the intention of that family to get back into it. It's New Jersey, again, big population in a small area. It's sad to see Bandimere go because the family's been in drag racing forever. I mean, since the 50s. The track itself has been a fan favorite. So it's sad to see him go, but hopefully if plans go the way they're supposed to go, we'll have him back in a couple more years and, bigger, better racetrack. And, maybe we'll see another 4 wide track out there in the Mile High City. So.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. So, but time moves on. That real estate thing is the same thing that killed Bridgeport, killed Ontario, killed Riverside. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's tracks.
It's about to kill Lime Rock Park.
Yeah. I mean, tracks are going away for highway entrances and exits. I mean, literally, there was a racetrack. They got bought out because the state wanted to put a freeway exit right where the track was. So, yeah, it's tough.
Well, some of them freeway exits have a similar banking to a NASCAR track.
It is true.
I mean,
That is true.
Long Beach used to have freeway exits as part of the track.
Yes, they did. Yep. Yes, they did. So, all right, Lee. Well, thank you for your report. We're looking forward to hearing about the Four Wives of Charlotte. So, Richard, Formula One, with the sprint race coming up, there's a new format for that. So, you care to talk us through it?
Well, firstly, Lee, I'll be at the Four Wives this weekend down in Charlotte.
I was hoping you'd
really
go.
Looking forward to that one. That should be great fun. Followed by 3 days testing at the Oval just down the road, which will be nighttime testing is always fun. Anyway, moving on. Formula One first of the new sprint weekend formats coming up this weekend in Baku. So I believe you have FP1 as normal on Friday morning. Then Friday afternoon you go into the race qualifying for Sunday. So the grid for Sunday is set on Friday afternoon. Then Saturday morning you have sprint qualifying and then the sprint race Saturday afternoon. So the sprint race now is completely separated from the from the main race. There's no grid of allocation. There's 2 qualifying sessions. Which I think in a way is a little bit better. It does separate them out and it does make them their own entity and will allow the drivers to be a little bit more aggressive in the sprint races, knowing that if they do wreck, then it's not going to have a massive impact on their Sunday race, which is where all the big points are handed out.
So what is the purpose of the sprint race then if it's not to set the grid? It just for some... Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair, points. Couple of points, right?
It's going down the route that Formula 2 runs and Formula 3 runs, where I mean, even in Formula 2 now, the sprint race does determine the reverse grid for the feature race, as they call it. And I don't know, I have mixed opinions on this because Formula 1 has always been very, very traditional in its structure. Friday practice, Saturday qualifying, Sunday race. Yeah, there's been a few variations over the years, but never anything crazy. And to have 2 races a weekend, I don't know. But the person that likes to sit in front of the TV and watch these races loves it because there's more racing, there's more action, and there's more basically, which is never a bad thing. But then the purist is like, are they trying to fix something that isn't a problem? We're all hearing about how popular Formula 1 is with, the Drive to Survive series and, the 3 races in North America, or in the US now, 5 races in North America in total, and the continued expansion and the rumoured expansion to South Africa next year. So, the sport's growing massively. Do we need to, it's like trying to take touch-up paint to the Sistine Chapel. Is it really needed? I don't know.
Yeah, but again, Liberty is throwing a lot of stuff at it. So and tradition be damned, right? And your Formula 1.
They've done a pretty good job with maintaining a lot of the traditions. I know there's a lot of tracks that are not as revenue generating as some of the potentially could be out there that Liberty have certainly stuck around and clung to. So certainly they are embracing some of the history of the sport without sacrificing too much, because obviously they're making enough cash right now, aren't they? So it'll be interesting to see how this works out this weekend. But yeah, you don't want to make it too gimmicky.
Right.
No, that's the last thing we need. And it's fortunate that we go from Melbourne to Baku. It gets my mind clear off of that because that what happened in Melbourne, I needed that time break for Formula 1 as far as the current
those
season.
Sort of events, but do you think those sort of events that we saw in Melbourne, it didn't paint a good picture for sure, but you only realize your weaknesses when events like that happen. If the race had been if you go through a whole season and every race runs like clockwork, you never learn anything, you never develop new procedures. I'm sure the FIA and the race stewards have taken a step back post Melbourne and said, right, okay, this wasn't a great look for the sport.
Yeah, which is a good hard lesson.
We ran it by the rules, but are the rules right? What can we do here to maintain safety? A lot of these red flags and safety cars and virtual safety cars, go back to the incident we had with Jules Bianchi. And even then, we're still seeing instances. It was last year or the year before, again at Suzuka of all places, where Pierre Gasly almost hit a tractor that was on the track. So there's certainly room for improvement here, and I applaud the FIA for trying to make this as safe as possible. You don't want it to become sterilized in a way and manipulated in a way that NASCAR almost is, whereas every time somebody brushes a wall, they throw a caution, or like, which is the Formula One equivalent of the safety car period. So there's balances. Like in Saudi Arabia, they went too far when Lance Stroll retired from the race. He did pretty much everything he could be to get off the racing line, and they threw a safety car. It's like, well,
yeah, that should have been a virtual from the very beginning.
Virtual at most, but again, it's a learning exercise, and the FIA and the stewards need to be vocal and need to you almost want to hear the decision making that goes on inside the stewards' room in the same way that you hear the NFL referees. Why are you making that call to red flag a race or to put a safety car out or a virtual safety? I mean, thankfully, a lot of the time it's pretty obvious. We've all watched enough races to be able to make the call.
For F1, I've been more lenient. At least it's valid and reasonable. Whereas NASCAR, I scratch my head sometimes with it, unless they have like a last lap red flag rule like they used to. And I think INDYCAR kind of has it, but it's not in the book that says that's the lap where we can throw the red flag the very latest. F1, on the other hand, they got those rules, and it's been established. Like even the red flag past 75% distance has kind of been thrown out the window these days.
Yeah. So again, come up with a consistent, repeatable set of rules that everybody knows. Okay, there's 10 laps to go. Right, we've got a wreck. The wall's damaged. We've got to red flag the race. Which if the wall gets damaged, 100% agree with you. You look back at Kimi Räikkönen's wreck at Silverstone a few years ago, where he damaged. It wasn't a big impact, but he damaged the wall on the arm curb barrier on the first lap. And Formula One takes these things very, very seriously. And if they restarted the race straight away and somebody else had a wreck in the same location, you could have been, their accident could have been much worse. Now, probability of that happening is very slim, but lightning does strike twice. So, they need to do a better job at publicizing the rules and being consistent. Almost like you don't have to, okay, this has happened, right? This is what happens now. Never that easy, but as fans, we want to see that,
Yeah, and they've been typically proactive about it as well, where if it's not going to work, fix it. I mean, look at the old qualifying format where a driver gets eliminated after 90 seconds. It didn't work, and they abolished it.
No. So yeah, I mean, they've been good, but again, now with the popularity of the sport increasing, there's more eyes on it, and especially a lot more what I'd call, and this isn't being disrespectful, armchair fans, people who don't understand the finer points of racing, people who just want to watch it because, Lando Norris is cute or whatever. I mean, not my words.
Well, he is cute. So, I mean,
there are those people out there that watch F1 just solely for Lando or for Pierre or for George.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the race coming up at Miami and a lot of those places, a lot of these new places they go to, especially in North America, that's been so heavily driven by Drive to Survive. That's what it is. It's the TMZ crowd, and so when you start throwing these red flags and safety cars and all this sort of stuff, it's hard enough to explain to a new fan. Okay, well, safety car is because of this. Well, and actually, if it's really bad, we get a red flag. But it's not. It doesn't look really bad, but it could be.
Yeah, and that's
definitely needs some tweaking. Yeah. So, all right. So we got a couple of minutes left. So, Lee, you're gonna pick Kevin Magnussen to finish second.
Yep.
Are we still picking second place? We're gonna give this one to Max.
Yeah, I am.
You know me, it's Baku, so you know I'm probably not gonna go.
Yeah, Baku usually produces some interesting races. Yeah, some unexpected results here and there.
Let's see. I'll let you guys decide the F1 winners, and I'll figure out who I'll go with.
Okay, all right. So you'll take
his left. Science to have a strong weekend.
All right, so Science to finish second to Max, or Science to win?
Have a strong weekend.
All right, I'm gonna go with Lewis Hamilton to get a win in the books. Finally, it's been a little long, been a little while for that dude, man. You know what I mean? And it's he's got to be like chomping at the bit. So
he's driving well, you know.
He's driving well in the car. Yeah.
You know, and I think Mercedes are bringing an upgrade package to Baku. It's a shame we haven't seen any photographs of that yet. I think they'll probably start appearing tomorrow as they go through scrutineering and tech. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, you know, what upgrade package Mercedes bought. Do they still have the zero side pod design? The rumors are they're going away from that. I don't think that's the problem. I think not the whole problem anyway. But it'll be interesting to see what they bring and if Aston Martin can maintain that, maintain their best of the rest title.
That's good.
Although Fernando Alonso has probably got his eyes on a bigger prize right now. We'll leave that there.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the subject matter. I was going to say, I'd say if. You're gonna get me on a,
leave it.
Yeah, don't get me started about that. But I will say, Alonso, I think if Baku, I'm gonna go with Alonso breaking through and get that win.
Right, and then if all goes south, she'll write a song about it.
Oh,
don't get that. I swear, we'll save that for the music podcast and off air because you know what I'm gonna say, and I don't want to talk about it. That's why INDYCAR Iowa. That's my radar. That's as far as I'm going to say.
All right, man. Sounds good. Okay, well, so I do want to thank our producer, Keith Hayes, for making us look good every week. I want to thank Forza Motorsport, 100 Days to Indy on the CW, which you can watch tomorrow. I want to thank you, Lee, Richard. I want to thank you, Louise. I want to thank Facebook Live, YouTube Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. I think that's right. I don't know. And Spotify.
I think you missed the MySpace podcast page in there somewhere.
The MySpace, yeah. Didn't Justin Timberlake bought MySpace at one point in time and every thought it was going to, but I don't know. Nothing ever happened with that. So poor old Justin Timberlake. He had to write another album, do another tour to get his money back, right? So I'm sure he's not hurting too bad.
I'm sure that Trolls Money did him good. #1 song and all that jazz. He came back.
Yeah. That Trolls.
So much he's got to make a sequel.
Joking aside, actually, if we, my wife's a huge JT fan, and we've been to see him in concert a few times, and I do have a bit of a man crush on him. He's really good.
The guy is a heck of a performer. He really is.
Great performer.
I'll tell you, my ex-wife, I took her to concerts of people that I would never imagine going to see, and I was surprised how good they were. Like Michael Bublé is one of them. So, but then again, like Louise says, we need to save all that for a music podcast. So.
yeah, because now you're bringing up all that stuff. Then I might have to bring mine, but we're not going that route.
All right. Well, good night, gentlemen, and good night to you folks that watch us every week. Tune in next week, and we'll go over the races from this past week, including the 4 wides, the Formula 1 race, the Dover, and the INDYCAR at Barber Motorsports Park. So until then,
weekend.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Sinister One production.